and Aerosmith was in town. And it's kind of like they sit at a table and the media's interviewing, asking questions. And
All right. I think you are live. Yeah.
we made a point. We said, look, you guys are considered one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. What do you think your secret's been? And Joe Perry, the guitarist, he goes, we stayed together. Most bands break up.
That's real. That's
Mhm.
true. Let's see if you're live and I can see. Yep.
We're good?
You're good.
All right. So am I live here or somewhere else?
You're live here. So your comments
Okay.
will pop up here.
All right. So here I'll see if people are going to be checking
Yes,
in.
If people are.
Now, when Sam was saying direct them to my link in bio, where's that?
So when someone's on their phone and they see your account, you can just point up to that's where they go, and then they click the link in your bio.
Oh, so I'm going to point them to the top.
Point them to the top. We'll go here. That's if we get anybody in here.
Right.
So they click this icon.
Yep.
And then they just click the link in the bio.
The link in the bio, the school link in the bio.
Yes.
Got it. All right. So you just click this link above here. And you'll see
Click the profile icon above here.
click the profile icon right up here above me. That'll take you to the school link in bio. Hit that.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm talking through the mic.
They
Okay.
can hear you though. That's good.
All right. Thank you.
I'm gonna go get those posts.
Okay. All right. We are live. Folks, thank you for joining. We are here to talk about how you can stop renting and buy houses. Okay. Got our show's producer here still working out the detail here. He says, I'll make you look good on camera. He's still working on it. I'll get back to you within the hour, see if he pulls it off. But we're lined up. We're ready to go. And the reason we talk about stop renting and buying houses is that, to me, if you can control the roof over your head, life gets a lot easier. So for those of you that are watching right now, put in the chat, just drop a 1 or 2. 1 if you're renting, 2 if you own a house already. Because if you're renting and you continue to rent, you got to find a way out. You got to find a way that you can stop renting and own a property. And I know a lot of you think that there's no way you can do it. You need great credit. You need a big down payment. You need to go get a mortgage. That's not true. It's just not true. I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to share with you a 5-step process where to find those types of properties. Because when you can find them, you can make these types of offers I'm going to outline for you this afternoon, and it'll put you in position that you can have control of the roof over your head. Now, here's the reason I'm big on controlling the roof over your head. If you think about it, right now, if you're on a lease, when your lease comes to an end, there are several things that could happen. If the landlord decides to raise the rent on your lease for a new one, if you decide you don't want to pay it, you're gone. If the landlord says, you know what, I'm going to sell the house. Do you want to buy it? Well, if you can't or don't want to, guess what? You're gone. If the landlord says, you know what, I got a friend that wants to rent it, so when your lease is up, you're gone. Any one of those scenarios, your life is turned upside down, completely upside down. Because what happens when you know you have to move from the place where you live? Now you have to start making applications. You have to find a property. You have to pay money for those applications. You have to come up with a first, last, and security. You have to spend money for a moving truck. You have to get help to do the move. You got to take time off work to do the move. Folks, it just really wrecks with the center of your universe. Your energy is completely discombobulated, and it just throws your momentum off for the weeks, if not a couple of months, that you're going through that process. So what I'm suggesting here is, if you have a plan and you know how that you can acquire a property without having to come up with a big down payment, with simply segueing from from a rent payment to a mortgage payment, it solves your problem. Now, let me ask you, for those of you that are watching right now, how many of you, well, those of you who are renting, how much are you paying for rent? Drop it in. You can just send a quick message, drop it in the chat. How much are you paying a month for rent? What is it? Throw some numbers out there. Let me see how much you're paying for rent. Oh, okay. We got some people at $1,200, $1,750. Wow, $2,200, $3,500. Folks, if you're paying this much, if you are able to stroke a check every month or make a deposit to cover a roof over your head so you have a safe place to sleep, you're making enough money to buy a house. See, what happens is when you go to buy a house, people get caught up in the big number. You go on online, you see a house for sale, and it may say 400 $400,000. And that scares you. You say, I don't have 400,000. I can't go anywhere and get 400,000. So it blows you out of the water. But now contrast that. When you're looking for a rental, the rental place where you live now, you're on an annual lease. If you're paying was the ad for the place that you're renting right now say, rent this house for 24,000 a year, rent this apartment for 24,000 a year? No, they advertised the payment. That's what you pay every month. You need to be looking at houses as the same way, not this big overwhelming number, but how much is it going to cost me to live in that property on a monthly basis? Once you shift your mind and grasp that concept, this gets a whole lot less intimidating, because now what you can do, you can start looking at properties that you can acquire by taking over the mortgage payment. Now, how many of you think I'm nuts, saying there's no way you can buy a house and just take the payment? No, give me a one. Oh, here we got some chats over here. Give me a one if you think that you can't do it. For those of you watching, drop a one in the chat there. If you don't believe it's possible to buy a property by simply taking over the mortgage payment, right? Just let me know. Okay. Well, those of you who don't think it's possible, I'm going to defend your position right now. You know why? Because I thought the same thing the first time I saw this way back at the turn of the century, back before we had online and internet and access to all this information at the touch of a finger on the palm of our hand. An old investor shared this with me, and now I'm sharing it with you all these years later. He has since passed on, but the information remains the same, because acquiring properties by taking over payment, that has been around for, I don't know, I'm going to go minimum 100 years, because real estate, it's about striking an agreement with somebody who has a problem to solve. That's what you're looking for. These are the sellers that agree to what I'm discussing here this afternoon. They have a problem that needs to be solved. I often share the story. Very first time that I did one for myself, got a phone call from a real estate agent that was a friend of mine at the time. He says, guess what? My friend Joe, girlfriend left him. He was unemployed. She was paying all the bills. She had enough of it, packed up the house and moved out. Well, the problem with that is there was a mortgage on the property, and he was unemployed and he couldn't pay it. So my friend had asked me, would you be interested? I said, yeah, buddy. So I run over to his house. I get there, and she did clean him out. She took away everything. All that was left was a mattress on the floor and a motorcycle in the living room. That's all he had. So not really knowing how to put this together, I just asked him, to me, what would be an obvious question. What do you want? He said, look, man, I can't make the mortgage payment. It's due in a couple of weeks, and I need a couple of bucks to move to get somewhere else. I said, well, when you say a couple of bucks, how much is that? He says, $2,000. I said, well, you know what? I don't have $2,000, but I can make that mortgage payment, because the mortgage payment back then was only like $1,200. I said, I can make that mortgage payment. So he had no furniture. So we went around the corner to a Dunkin' Donuts, bought him a coffee. I had my binder with, all these forms and stuff, and I'm zipping through them, looking for one, buy a property by taking up the mortgage payment, filled it out, had him sign it, bought him a coffee. And folks, for the cost of a cup of coffee, I had control of a house. I owned the house because he signed it over. I became what's called the equitable owner. So what the agreement was is that I would clean up the house if he moved out, repaint it, which I did myself, because back then I was young and excited about life. Did it all myself. And I sold the property. About 45 days later, the gross profit was $15,000 and gave him $2,000, which was the agreement. I kept $13,000. I was thrilled. I was thrilled, not because I moved in there and lived there, because I had a game plan. I had a plan of attack on how I was going to improve my life. At that moment in time, I was working a paycheck job Monday through Friday. Get that paycheck, pay my rent, pay my bills, and too much month left after the end of the money. Wasn't fun. I said, you know what? I'm trapped. I recognized then. I mean, I was on a treadmill, hamster wheel, whatever metaphor you want to use. I was stuck. But when I found out how to do this, my world changed because once you have the information, once you know how to connect the dots and put it together, wrap it up, and get paid for it, oh my goodness. Folks, those of you that are watching this right now, you're probably at work or taking a break on a late lunch. If you did something that allowed you to make an extra $7,000 to $10,000 in the next 30 days, would you feel it? Most people would. There was a study out. The majority of Americans don't have $400 cash for a financial emergency. Why? Because they're living paycheck to paycheck. They make just enough to pay their car payment, car insurance, cell phone bill, electric, buy food, pay the rent. They're wiped out. I talked to recently. I just talked to a young man. He's got 3 kids. He told me his monthly nut to break even, cover all the bills, $6,000 a month take home. That's what he needs to just maintain his life where he's at right now. That's no vacations. That's not going out to Longhorn for a steak dinner with the whole family on Saturday night. That is just being able to cover all the expenses associated with supporting and raising a 5-member family. So, fortunately for him, well, or unfortunately, he's self-employed, but it's a manual labor job. He cleans tile. He runs around cleaning tile all day long. God love him, but he can do it. But I said to him, which I'll share it with you that are watching right now. If you're doing a job that demands physical effort, and what I mean by that, you got to get in the car and you got to drive somewhere to go to work. When you're at work, are you doing something that's manual labor oriented? Are you on your feet? Are you moving stuff? Are you go up and down stairs? If you're doing a job where it's somewhat physical requirement, anything outside of just, sitting at a desk, the day will come, you can't do it anymore. Your body will say, you know what? Okay, enough. That's it. Tap out. Let's do something else. Well, if that day will come for all of us. It comes for all of us. But what I'm suggesting here is when that day comes from you or for you, make sure you control the roof over your head. That's where we're going. Control the roof over your head, because at the end of the day, if you know where you're going home to, where you're going to sleep, that takes a lot of stress off, as opposed to renting where, okay, you got a place to sleep tonight, but you know what? Landlord gave you 60 days notice. He's not renewing the lease, or he's going to raise the rent, or he's going to sell the property, or he's moving someone else in. Don't put yourself in that position again. Most all of you watching this have been in that position, and some of you are set up to go through it again. So what I'm showing you is you can trade that rent payment for a mortgage payment. Just simply sidestep, find a property where a seller will part with the property because it's a problem. Just take my payment. Here's the keys. Here's the payment. Take it. I shared with you the first time I ever did this. But that was about a year and a half after I had my first opportunity to do it. And I didn't do it. And there's a saying, if you talk to people that are really old, like in their 80s and 90s, what their regrets are in life, almost always they will tell you their regrets are things they didn't do. They were chances they didn't take. They were people they didn't approach. Those are the regrets. So what happened to me, here's my regret. The job that I had, I was working with a guy from Pennsylvania, and young guy, 2 young kids. Wife was down there. They bought a little house. Anyway, about after a year being in Florida, he didn't like it. The wife didn't like it, and he was struggling to make a living. And he said, you know what, we're going to go back to Pennsylvania because they had support. His parents were there. Her parents were there. And he said to me, we're at work. He says, here's the keys. If you want to take the house, you can have it. I had no idea how to do that at that time. And a lot of you watching this right now have no idea. If someone at work right now said, you know what, I'm out of here. Here's the keys. You can have the house. Just take it over. If you don't know how to do it, it's very intimidating. It was for me all those years ago. But it wasn't until later that I figured out how to do it when I came across an old investor that showed me how to do it. But to this day, I still regret that. I regret that opportunity. I still regret that. Now, granted, it wasn't a big house, but it was just the fact that opportunity was knocking and I didn't recognize it. And if I had been prepared, what they say, opportunity is luck is the crossroad of preparation and opportunity. The opportunity was there, luck was knocking on the door, but I wasn't prepared, so I couldn't do it. So let me share with you how to get prepared to do what I wasn't able to do all those years ago. So we're talking about where do you go to find properties that you can take over the existing payment. All right. Oh, get close to the mic. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I'm gonna get a little closer to the microphone. I get going, I get animated. But those of you that are commenting that are on here right now, really appreciate you bunches here. And I'm just gonna move this over so I can see a little bit better. All right, good. So what we want to do is we want to show you there's a 5-step process to identify. That's what we're doing. We're identifying properties that you can take over the payment on. Now, this is very important. Let me share a story with you. Years ago, I went into a business down in Boca Raton called the International Jewelry Exchange. Ladies, if you've never been in there, you have to make a trip there because it's row after row, cases and cases of nothing but diamonds. Yeah, I am now. Why? Okay, so I'm talking closer to the microphone?
No, you're fine. I'm just saying make sure you're keeping up with it.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Yep, a little closer to the mic. I'm there. Yes, I will show you how. Okay. All right, volume's good now. All right. Actually, I got the show's producer here. We got people that are lining up for autographs after this session, so I told him to keep him at bay until I finish sharing what I need to share with all of you. So I was talking about the International Jewelry Exchange, and it's nothing but diamonds, diamonds, and diamonds. I go in there. I walk up to one of the vendors, case of diamonds. I'm looking there, and he goes, "Can I help you find something?" And I said, "I'm looking for a good deal." And he took a step back and he folded his arms. He took a good look at me. He goes, "Would you know a good deal if you saw it?" And the answer was no, I wouldn't. So what I'm going to show you is how to recognize where to find a good deal. The way we're going to do it is we're going to use a website that everybody's heard of, a platform that you've all heard of. Anybody hear of something called Zillow? Yes. Well, Zillow will allow you to find these opportunities. And here's the way you do it. Now, before I get into it, those of you that are watching, I'm going to encourage you to stay with me while I go through the 5-step process. Because if you jump off, it's going to be a problem. You're going to get lost, get confused. You're coming back. What about this? And I'm further into the description. So what I will encourage you to do right now, grab a pen, piece of paper, something you can write notes with. If you're holding your phone, add it, make notes. Here's the 5-step process to identify these types of homes. You want to find that platform, Zillow. When you find that, you go and talk, and you're going to pull that up. Oh, Rare Fringe Princess just started up. Just joined us. Congratulations. Good to have you here. What you want to do is when you go to that site and you're talking, I'm sorry, you're not talking, you're looking, you're going to click on buy. You click on buy. And when you click on buy, that's going to open up another screen for you. And what I'm going to do as I'm talking to you is I'm going to make use of this extra screen so I can walk you through it. So that's step one. Step one, you go to that platform and you click on buy. And when you click on buy, that gives you, actually, it turns it over. So I'm trying to think how I could share this with you. You could see it. You know what I can do? I'll show you on my phone. I'll turn my phone around and you can see it on my phone. Because of the type of setup I have, I'm not able to do the split screen right here. But let me show you where that is that you can click on it and do what I'm suggesting here. Okay. So I'm pulling it up. Okie dokie. Here we go. All right. This, matter of fact, I want to make this a little bit smaller here so you can see what I'm doing here. This is where you're going to go. You see that? That you're going to go to there. And you see that search bar? You're going to put in a city. The city you want to search. That's what you're going to do. All right. So anybody here want to drop a city? Those of you that are in the chat, go ahead, drop a city. I'll look up your city. What is it? Go ahead and drop your city. Give me one. Anybody can drop one here. Anybody have a city you want me to search? Okay. Oh, Jacksonville. All right, let's look up Jacksonville. So what you do in that search bar, you're going to type in your city. In this case, we're doing Jacksonville, Florida. We're putting in, let me see if you can see that, Jacksonville, Florida. There you go. Now, once you've done that, step 2 is you're going to actually get hit. There's going to be a map that pops up. You see that? A map pops up. So step 2, did you see that up in the corner right there? It says remove boundary. That's step 2. That's what we do. We remove the boundary. Look what happens. You get a wider radius, increases the number of options that you have. That was step 2. Step 3, listen to me. Step 3, you want to go to filters. When you go to filters, you're going to be able to see, I'm trying to get the glare off for you. Step 3, you see the filters? There you go. Right there. Okay, there you go. You can see it there. We got houses, townhomes. We want to stick with the houses, multifamily, and the manufactured. So I take out the other ones. The reason I do that, houses is what we're looking for. You're not looking for lots of land. You're not going to pitch a tent. So you do that. So what you do is you're going to hit apply after you do that. Because right now we have about 8,000 results. See that? 8,115. We want to narrow that down because that's a lot to go through. That's a lot to go through. So we narrow that down. And then while you're still in the filters, you're going to see listing type. Sorry about the glare there, folks. Go listing type. Over this way. All right, listing type. You're going to go with owner posted, agent. Stay with those. But what I'm going to show you, the most important filter that we have on here is you want to scroll all the way to the bottom of all these filters, all the way to the bottom. When you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to see, you see that? Keywords? You see keywords? That is the magic filter. That's what you want to do. In there, we're going to enter a word to help screen all those properties and identify properties that are advertised and take over the payment. That's what we're looking for. So what we're going to do is the word we enter that we put in there is assumable. The reason we put the word assumable is that means to take over someone's responsibility, which is what we're looking to do. We want to take over a payment. So we hit assumable, and then when we do that, let's see how much that narrows it down. Whoop, hit assumable. There we go. And see what we got. Well, I'm getting not getting the weed down here. Okay. Assumable. Well, anyway, when you hit the assumable, what that does is it narrows down all the properties to what you're searching for, which is somebody advertising the fact that if you take over my property or if you buy it, you will be in a position to take over the payment. Now, a lot of you think that you can't do that. So that's the 5-step process. So again, let me sum that up for you for those of you taking notes. Step 1, we have fun. We go to that platform, Zillow. We go to the search bar and we enter in the city that we want to search for a property. Step 2, what we do is we click on remove boundary. When you remove the boundary, that widens the radius. Step 3, listen to me, you go through the filters. And what you're going to do is you're going to be looking for types of property. You want houses, you want multifamily, you want manufactured. Manufactured homes are good if they come with their own land. Multifamily are great because you could live in one unit and rent out the others. If you choose not to live there, you can simply rent out all the units. That's great too. And of course, a single family house, that's what we're looking for. So that's how you go ahead and move ahead by narrowing down those filters. But then step 4, there's a filter called more. In there, you're going to scroll down to the bottom, like I said, and look for that filter called keywords. And in that one, you're going to enter the word assumable. And by doing that, you're going to weed out through all those listings, the ones that are advertising something that's assumable. And what's exciting about that is that what you're going to find by doing it is you're going to identify properties that you can purchase simply by taking over the payment. Now, for those who don't think that you can do that, those that don't think you can do it, there is well, let me take a step back. I get excited, but let me take a step back. How many of you watching this right now already own a property? Because this is a great strategy to acquire more property. How many of you, give me a 2 if you own a property. Just drop it in the chat. Give me a 2. All right. What if you don't qualify? No qualification is necessary for this. No qualifications necessary. You're buying it subject to the payment. That's what you're doing. So what you can do here, now those of you that already own a home, you've already gone through this. You have seen this. If you already own a property, you have been in a situation where you had to go to the closing and you signed what was called a settlement statement. You know what I'm talking about? A settlement statement. That one is like a balance sheet. And what that had is a lot of information on costs involved with purchasing the property. And it's called, by real estate people, HUD-1 settlement statement. The reason it's called a HUD-1 is that it's produced by the Housing and Urban Development division of the government. So this is used with every single property that is sold anywhere in the United States. So the reason I bring that up is that it's so common that it's on this particular form. So when you have access to it and you can see what it's all about, you understand that, hey, you know what? I can go ahead and use this here. I'm pulling it up right now. What I want to show you is right here on line, it's going to be hard to see, line 203. There you go. You see it. 203. Existing loans taken, subject to. That's it. That's what I'm talking about, folks. This is so common, a practice that it's a pre-printed option on the federal closing statement. That's how you do it. When you identify a property that's advertising, hey, I have an assumable mortgage, which means you can take it over. You say, you know what? I'll buy that property. Have them tell you what's the situation. Where are they? Why are they promoting the fact that they have a loan that can be taken over? Because they're motivated to sell it. Again, this type of offer you can make on every single property out there in America, but you can only do it on properties where the seller, the owner of the property, is trying to solve a problem. There has to be pain. Always remember, when you buy a property subject to, there's pain involved. If you're ever buying a property where there's owner financing, there's gain involved, because when an owner can sell their property and provide the financing like a bank, they collect the interest, not the bank. So they get a gain. Subject to, that's why it says it starts with S, subject to solving problems. That's how you remember it. Subject to solving problems, removing pain. Owner financing, you're gaining. The seller gains something there, and you do too, because you don't have to go through a bank. So when you've identified a property that is advertising the fact that they have an assumable mortgage, what you want to do when you call them, you want to ask a question. Say, hey, I saw your ad. This is very interesting. What's this all about? Yeah, you're advertising you have a mortgage, and oftentimes at a lower interest rate than what the current interest rates are now if we went to a bank. Folks, right now, if I met you for a coffee, let's go get an afternoon cappuccino. We'll pop into the bank and see if we can qualify for a mortgage. Even if you do qualify for a mortgage, what do you think the interest rate is right now? Go ahead, drop it in the chat. Give me a number. Drop it in the chat. What do you think the current interest rate is at a bank right now? Oh, there we go. Somebody said 7.5, 6. Yep. 6 to 7. That is the correct answer. 6 to 7% is the going interest rate if we were to walk into a bank this afternoon. And even if you did qualify, you had great credit, you had your 2 years tax returns, you had a down payment to go with, that's what you're going to end up getting hit with. So a lot of these properties, especially if they're advertising the fact, oftentimes the interest rate on those particular mortgages are less than what you can get at a bank. That's a home run, because that's where I said at the outset, trade your rent payment every month for a mortgage payment. Oftentimes, that mortgage payment is going to be less than what you're paying for rent. and you can probably get a nicer place to live and own it and control it. See, when I say about about owning, controlling, the thing you need to understand is that when you buy a property, there's two things you got to keep in mind. Ownership is shown by the deed. The deed is the ownership. That shows who owns it. The mortgage is the lien against the property, meaning as long as that payment's being made, the person who holds the deed, they own the house. If they stop paying the mortgage payment, that mortgage can take the house away and then the bank owns it. You don't want to have that happen. That's why when you're looking for the right types of properties in this situation, the folks that are advertising that, oftentimes they're having trouble making that payment for whatever reason. They could be going through a divorce. They could be job loss, job transfer, any number of reasons that they need to part with that property because they cannot or don't want to maintain that payment. Again, you're looking to solve a problem, which is you're going to remove somebody's pain. That's what we're doing. We're removing somebody's pain. So when you've identified a property, the way it would be structured is you would simply write up an offer. In real estate terms, we call it an LOI, a letter of intent. You can keep it simple. Hey, you're advertising the house for $300,000. You said I can take over the mortgage payment of $1,700 a month. I'm in agreement with that. I can do that, and we just need to put this agreement into a contract and how fast we would be able to close and wrap this up, folks. If the property's vacant, there's more motivation. If that property has been on the market for more than 60 days, there's more motivation. So you need to be able to connect the dots. If you go down on the description, sometimes it'll tell you if they had an offer and it fell apart. There's more motivation. So again, you're looking to solve a problem. Like I said, going into the jewelry exchange, you got to know what you're looking for to find a good deal. What I'm sharing with you is how to identify a good deal on a property that you can buy by simply taking over the payment. And these are good. And there's also other programs that could be used to find out which homes are in trouble. I mean, back at the turn of the century, before we had the internet as readily available as we do today, the way we would identify properties where somebody was in trouble, was in pain, it was either by chance, like my first two opportunities, strictly by chance, people that I was physically talking to. And then, but if you wanted to turn it into a system, that's what you need to do. You turn it into a duplicatable system, then you can do it over and over again. Well, back then we would literally go knock on doors, drive around. Oh, looks like nobody's cut the grass for like 3 months. Knock on the door. Oh, nobody's here. Let's look up who owns it. Try and find a phone number. Track them down. Hey, do you want to sell the property? That's how we did. And then also going to the courthouse, you go through public records, looking for ones that are in pre-foreclosure, meaning the banks put a notice that, hey, they ain't paying the mortgage payment. So this was how it was done at the turn of the century. So a comment that you hear today in 2026 is that finding, identifying, and acquiring these types of properties, it's never been easier, but it's never been more difficult because the person you're talking to is getting hit from a lot of different angles. So they don't know what to believe, who to believe, how to qualify and analyze the information. So what you need to do when you're the person approaching, looking for an opportunity, you have to be as descriptive as possible. You have to build trust because look, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And again, you're solving problems. I'll share one with you. It just happened to me about a year ago. Fellow not too far. We're here in North Florida. Fellow was going through a divorce. He was down in Ponte Vedra Beach. And I found his house, and it was online, like I just showed you, exactly how I just showed you. And I called him. I said, hey, what's going on with the house? He goes, man. He goes, me and the wife, we're getting a divorce, and judge ordered us to sell the house. I said, oh, well, just making conversation. Well, who's living in the house now? He goes, just me. She moved out of state. So I said, all right, well, I'd be interested in buying it. Could I take over the mortgage? Oh, well, I'm really far behind on that right now. I said, well, how much is it to bring it current? He goes, well, it's quite a bit. He goes, I don't know exactly, but I said, look, let's start the first step. I said, why don't, this is what I did because I was excited about it because it was close by. I mean, it was, not more than 7 miles from where I was living. So I said, how about if I come over, take a look at the house? So I did that, went over, took a look. He's there. House is in complete disarray because his life was falling apart. He was getting divorced. Wife left. Kids had moved out. They were college age. And he said, look, okay, I'll sell the house for, I think he said like just under $1 million. It was like 980,000. So, okay, let's do it for 980. So I do a contract with him. And as time passes, we contact the mortgage company looking to get the exact payment. But it turns out they were too far gone. The bank had already set up an auction date for it to be sold. Wow. So you talk about pressure. So it was going to go to auction, and he was past due. I still remember the number. It's $47,000. So and this is where you can make money, folks. Let me shift gears on this. You don't need 40. I didn't need $47,000 to buy that property. What I did, since I had it under an agreement, I found another investor who was looking to buy a house, fix it up, and resell it. So here's what we did. I had the property under an agreement for just under $1 million. But after seeing the house, we did what's called a renegotiation. And I said, look, the foundation's bad. You got soffit falling apart all over the house. The interior is a mess. The drywall was damaged. I said, look, let's renegotiate this. I said, you're going to foreclosure. I said, if the bank takes this to auction, you get zero. Again, remember, we're looking to solve a problem. Subject to means you're removing pain. He was facing not getting a dollar because if the bank took it to a foreclosure auction, he was getting zero. So I said, look, even though we got an agreement here right now at 900 or whatever it was, I said, if you can drop that price, I said, I can step in, have someone pay that past due amount to the court registry to stop the auction sale. That got his attention. He says, how much of a drop? I said, look, I went through the numbers. Here's what we got to do. So if you can drop it down to 650,000, you know what? That's almost a 400,000 drop. Guess what he said? He said yes, because there was a problem that needed to be solved. And here's what happened. When he did that price adjustment, I ran over to the other investor. I said, okay, forget the price I first told you. Now we're down to 650. He was in. The buyer, the end user, ran to the court and paid that $47,000 plus in certified funds to stop the sale. We wrapped up the transaction. The profit margin for me for doing that transaction, I made just a little over 10,000, which was nice. But the thing is that you have to be aware that you're solving problems. So now I just gave you the simplified version, but that took a lot of phone call conversations, a couple of coffee meetings in person because he was close by. Because to be truthful, I mean, he was just at a moment in life. He needed someone he could talk to and count on to help solve the problem. This is what we're talking about. If you can learn how to solve people's problems, if you can ask a question and listen actively. And what I mean by that, when you listen actively, you're not just letting people talk and then you're waiting to say what you want to say. You're listening to what they're saying to you, identifying the problem, and you're thinking, how can I solve that problem? Because when people tell you what they want to accomplish, then it makes it easier on you because now you have a solution. Give you another example. Just today, have a couple that's been involved with our group here, our community, and they're looking to buy a property, either subject to, which I'm discussing, but they're in a little bit better position. They have a little bit of money that they could pay to the seller to agree to it. So I got on the phone with one of the sellers or one of the properties they identified, and they were a little bit nervous. So happy to do a three-way, help them out. So I'm talking to the seller, and it turns out, I said, well, what do you want? You said you're offering to do seller financing. What does that mean? Well, the seller said, well, I'm looking for this amount percent down. I only charge 4% interest rate, which was attractive. And the won't have to be paid off for 10 years. I said, that's attractive. That's good. But the down payment he wanted was prohibitive. He was just asking too much of a down payment. So I said, you know what? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I'll get back to you. We're going to discuss this and find out what amount we can offer as the down payment. So we're working on that later this afternoon and see if the seller will take a smaller down payment, and the couple that's part of our community, they will be able to obtain a property without a huge down payment, without a credit check, without going through a mortgage qualification by submitting their taxes, tax returns, and figuring out debt to income ratio. They won't have to do that. And they can have possession of their own home. Because, folks, listen, almost all properties have a mortgage against them. Some people are very savvy. They pay their mortgages off, or if they're fortunate enough, they buy them cash. Well, there's no mortgage in those cases, but most homes have a mortgage. So as long as you are able to make that payment, you maintain the deed, which is the ownership of the property. That's what you can maintain. So that's what I want to emphasize, is that you can do this. Okay, let's see. When I type in assumable, it seems mostly auction homes come up. Well, conversations with Tony. If that's what you're seeing, then you have clicked on the filters auction. Just go back to listing type where it says owner posted, agent posted, construction, new construction. Click off auction. If you're getting hit with auctions, that's it. All right. And then as far as qualification, you don't need to qualify. That's my point. You're stepping in and taking over an existing obligation. It's that simple. And the way that's done, the way you take it over, is I showed you earlier on the closing statement. It says quite clearly that you can take over the property subject to an existing loan. Nice and easy. Here, I'm going to show it to you again. This is, hold on, let me get my camera in spot here over here so I can make sure you can see what I see. All right, here. Right there. That's this closing statement put out by HUD. Oh, there we go. There we go. Line 203. Look at line 203. Getting super close. Line 203. Existing loans taken subject to. And what's that on? That is on our settlement statement. Well, I want to show you who puts this out. There we go. That is on the settlement statement. And you see that logo? If you can read it. U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Folks, every single closing around the U.S. of A. uses this form. I'm pointing out to you that it's a pre-printed option on the standard settlement statement used by anybody that buys a property. Take advantage of that. If you're a real estate agent watching this, I'm sure a lot of you aren't even aware of this because nobody pointed it out to you. And in your defense as a real estate agent, you were not taught to sell a property subject to the existing mortgage because you tend to be taught one way to sell a property. I need a down payment. Did you qualify for a mortgage? You have an inspection period, and we have to close within a certain amount of days. Blah, 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 blah. All right. If you can sell a house that way, good for you. God bless. But there's a lot of people, thousands, if not millions of Americans who still do not yet control the roof over their head, that if they knew this particular process, they would be able to do it. So this is why I get revved up, because this changes the direction of your life. When you can, first step, if you can learn how to identify properties where there's a good opportunity, meaning you can buy it by taking the payment, that puts you in a tremendous strong financial position. Because even if you choose not to move into that property, if you can come to an agreement with that owner, you can now sell that agreement. Because one thing in real estate, we talk about there's different stages. A lot of people, when they first get started with this, they say, oh my gosh, I saw this property advertised. I got a lead. Well, what do you mean you got a lead? Well, they're advertising for sale, and I got the phone number. That's not a lead. That's what you call a suspect. You have nothing there. You just saw them. So you got a suspect. Nothing wrong with that. You got a suspect. That's where you start. Well, if you have that information and you have a phone number and you can talk to the seller and they say, yeah, in conversation that, yeah, I like what you're suggesting. I'd be interested. Okay. Now you have a prospect because you've identified the property, you've made contact with the seller, and you've gotten a verbal agreement. So now you have a prospect. The next step is to present your offer, which they agreed to in conversation, in writing. When they agree to that, they make that agreement in writing. For example, let's go back to what I was saying earlier. You identify a property. Seller says, yes, I'll sell it subject to the mortgage payment. And they agree to it, and you sign a written agreement. Guess what? Congratulations. Now you have what's called a lead. You're in position. If you choose not to live in the property, you can go and take that and you can market it to other investors, other individuals, other folks that would like to live in that house in that particular neighborhood. That's the third step. You have a lead. That's a true lead because you have control of it. You have the details, and you can turn around and sell that agreement. When you sell that agreement, that's called, in real estate terms, assignment. You're assigning your ASS. You're assigning your agreement to somebody else for a fee. You don't think that's valuable? Think about that. You identify a property where the seller will part ways for just you taking the payment. You don't think that's worth several $1,000s, if not more, maybe 10 or 15, because what you have done, because you could identify a good opportunity, you got it in writing, you got an agreement with the seller. What you've done is you have put together a very valuable situation that people out there looking to buy a house who do not qualify for a traditional mortgage, who have some money to put down and can make that payment. That's your client. That's your new client. You can sell that to for a fee that you come to an agreement on. That's huge. That's absolutely huge, because once you have that agreement, that lead, because you have a contract, well, the next step is simply to close. You just want to close out the deal and get compensated for it. How does that happen? As I just showed you, you put all the information down on a HUD-1 put out by the Department of Housing and Urban Development that says closing subject to the existing loan, and you're selling it for a fee. What could be more simple? It's simple. It is simple, not necessarily easy, because you have to know what conversation you're going to make. You have to know what type of contract is going to be put together, that you want to put on the wording together. You want to be able to identify a buyer that you can sell that particular opportunity to. You need to identify the title company that's going to do the closing for you. Folks, we have all that. We have these relationships already in place. We have the scripts, we have the contracts, we have the relationships with the title companies. What I'm offering to you is follow this broadcast. Follow this YouTube channel. What do they say? You don't have to smash the like button. Just click on it. You don't smash, just click. And we can communicate back and forth with you for information that you are looking for, answer your questions, because now you can go out into the world and not be on your own. See, that's the hardest part about learning anything new, especially something like this. Well, what do you say? You get out there, what do you say? I mean, I can remember a long time ago, the first time I went into a for sale by owner, and there was a sign in the yard, owner will finance. And this is before I did my first transaction, because I was leaning into it. I mean, I knew I had to learn how to acquire real estate, because that's the cornerstone for any type of financial stability as you get old. I knew I had to learn it. So I was stumbling and fumbling, and I was reading books on it, and I couldn't synthesize all the information where I could put it together into a cohesive conversation when I was talking to a seller and make them feel comfortable. Because granted, I mean, like I said, this is turn of the century. Looked a lot younger than I am now. And when you're talking to somebody that's old enough to be your parents, that gets awkward sometimes. Are they going to trust you what you're doing? Unless, of course, they're in a lot of pain. And I remember one said, yeah, I'll do the owner financing. Well, I didn't know how to ask about terms. Well, how much would be the down payment? What would be the interest rate? What would be the payment? Do you have a balloon payment for the balance? When would it be due? Can we refinance out of it? I mean, all these real estate terms I wasn't aware of. I may have been aware of them, but I didn't know how to incorporate them at the right time in a conversation. So what I'm saying is that if you like this particular YouTube channel, we can talk more about how you can stop renting and buy houses. But everything has a beginning. This is ours. We've only been doing this YouTube channel for a very short period of time. So we are looking for people to like this channel so we can communicate back with you and maintain a relationship and answer questions for you. Because look, what's going to happen is when you go out in the world or you find something online, you're trying to figure out what makes sense. What can I do with this? Well, if you have a place to reach out and have somebody answer your questions, it's a big help. Folks, we've been doing this, helping people for quite a while. And the folks that are active, they send me messages, maybe a text. Phone call for the ones that are, oh, wow, I found something. And I always go through that conversation. When you say you found something, did you find a suspect, a prospect, or do you have a lead? And the first time they hear that, they're like, because people get hung up on semantics. They use those words interchangeably. And I have to go again. A suspect is a house with a phone number. A prospect is a house, a phone number, and you have talked to the owner and you've got an agreement in conversation. That's a prospect. A lead is when you've turned that positive conversation into an agreement on paper. That becomes a lead because you have a contract which you can now close on and make a profit on, make money on it. Whether or not you decide to keep that property for yourself, here's another twist. We've done this with many properties. We ourselves are not going to move in and live in the property, but if the mortgage payment is low enough and the market rent is high enough, we'll just keep the property and rent it out, make a cash flow. We have a couple of properties where the difference between the mortgage and the market rent is $1,000 per month. So we're netting, after the maintenance of the property, we're making a profit. We're doing this on multiple homes. This is how you build up a financial portfolio of real estate without having to have good credit, without having to have a bucket full of money, without qualifying to go get your own mortgage and buy these properties. This is how you do it. This is the game plan. How many of you watching this right now played sports in high school or college? Give me a 1. Drop a 1 if you played team sports in high school or college. Just put it there in the chat. Okay. Well, for those of you that play team sports, didn't you have a playbook? Didn't you have like a plan for that particular game? Like if you played basketball, you had certain plays when it was the middle of the first quarter. Didn't you have different plays at the end of the game if you were down by 2 points with 5 seconds left? Of course you did. This is what I'm sharing with you, is that what we can do is we can offer you that playbook of real estate investing. And you're asking, so, oh my gosh, how does that happen? How do I get access to this particular playbook? Would you just look above me right now and you see this icon for Real Money Club? If you click on that icon, it's going to take you to a link in bio. And when you see the link in bio, it says school, SKOOL. That's what you want to click on. Because when you do that, that's going to take you to our, what we call the Real Money Club, which is a one-stop location where we have entered scripts, contracts, closing statements, hours of conversation with real live sellers that you can listen to. And you can see how we connect the dots, how we put it all together. Because when we're able to do that and put it all together, then we're in great shape. Because now you can identify, put it together, close it, and get paid. That's what this is about. This is about making your life better, making your life easier from a financial standpoint. So again, the way you have access to it, right above my head, you'll see an icon for Real Money Club. Click on that. That's going to take you to a link in bio. When you get to that link in bio, it says school. Click on the school, and you can enroll in the Real Money Club. What does it cost? People ask me, what does it cost? It's nothing outrageous. There are companies that travel around the United States right now, and they do these seminars, and they ask for people to enroll in their schools. Folks, they charge like $20, $30, some of them $40,000 to get the information I'm offering to you. Not that the value's not there, but look, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you're trying to find your first house, where in the world, you don't have 40,000 in your cookie jar. So we said, let's make this accessible to as many people as possible. So what we decided to do, we'll just make it nominal. Just enough to cover the cost of maintaining the website. $25. For $25, you can join the Real Money Club, have access to the scripts, the contracts, the settlement statements, have a plan of action to put it all together for just $25 a month. But if you're really savvy, if you think about it, $25 a month over the course of a year, that adds up to $300. Why not be savvy? You can enroll for just $200 one time for the whole year. That's like getting 4 months free. But it's not just that. The added value to becoming what we call a premium member, sign up for the entire year, one time $200. We will provide to you a proof of funds letter. A proof of funds letter shows in your name that you are capable of buying a property with funds up to $1 million. And you're thinking, oh my God, how does that happen? Because we are leveraging our relationship to help you. That's what we're doing. We have a licensed accredited lender that we've done hundreds of deals with through the years. And we went to them, we said, look, we're putting together an education system that we can place online that people can have access to 24/7, 365. One obstacle that you may run into when you're contacting agents or looking to buy that first property or get control of it is that they want to know, are you qualified? Do you have proof of funds? Well, these are weed eater questions. They just do that kind of push people away at first. But now you can say, why, yes, I do. Here's my proof of funds letter in my name with the address of that property, up to the whatever dollar amount, up to $1 million. Because you're leveraging our relationship. We are extending that relationship to you. And by doing that, we're putting you in position that you can leverage it and take advantage of it. That is why we put it together. We want to make life, easier for you to acquire your first property. So again, the way you can access this, right on top here, you see an icon for the Real Money Club. And that particular icon will take you to a description, and you'll see a link in bio. It says school, SKOOL. You hit that, and that's going to allow you to enroll and be part of our community. And that's what we call it. We call it a community. You know why? Because we're here to help each other. We communicate with everybody that wants to be in touch with the next step, what to do, because it's a lot of information. Whenever you learn new information, it is intimidating because you're reading it, you can understand it, but you don't quite know how to incorporate that. Well, that's where we come in because we're here. We're here to help you. So when you're going through that first learning module about how to get started, and we provide you a 30-day checklist of what to do those first 30 days because we're offering you a duplicatable system. Folks, those of you watching right now, how many of you either work in the fast food industry or may have worked in fast food in the past? Just drop a 1 in the chat if you've done that. Okay. All right. For those of you that have, and I personally haven't, but say that we have 6 of us that never worked in fast food. I don't doubt for a minute that myself, along with 5 or 6 other people, could walk into a McDonald's with no experience and be able to keep it above water until we got formal training. And you know why? Because there is a system for every step in McDonald's. There is a checklist to run the fryer. There's a checklist to run the shake machine. There's a checklist on how to fry the burgers. It's all there, step by step by step, because it's a duplicatable system, which is why McDonald's took off more than any other fast food. They were the first ones to identify that if you have a system that can be repeated, lather, rinse, repeat, and as long as you follow those steps, you can be successful. Folks, it's the same thing with real estate. You can acquire property simply by taking over the existing payment if you know the proper steps. And from that first step of knowing where to identify them, there's going to be other opportunities. There's going to be different conversations, but we provide that for you. We provide you that 30-day checklist so you know what you're doing from day 1 through day 30. That's what we have for you at the Real Money Club. So to have access to it, you click on this icon right up on top. That's going to take you to a page, and you're going to see a link in bio for school, SKOOL. You hit that link in, and that'll allow you to enroll in the Real Money Club. And again, nominal. We're not charging tens of thousands of dollars to provide this information. $25. $25 a month, you can enroll. And if you're savvy, you can enroll for the whole year, one shot for $200. That's like getting 4 months free. $25 a month, that's $300. Do it one time for $200. Save $100 and get those 4 months free. And on top of that, we'll provide to you that proof of funds letter that you can use whenever it's required. Folks, we're giving you instant edification. We're giving you that playbook, that plan of attack, what to do, how to do that first phone call, what questions to ask, how to analyze the property, how to structure an offer, where to take it to a title company, and how to close on it and get compensated. Folks, it's a very simple process. It's lather, rinse, repeat, but you need to know what that playbook is. And that's what we're offering to you here at the Real Money Club. So do yourself a favor. If you uh, do a little self-awareness right now. Right now, it's like 3 o'clock Eastern time right now. If you stopped on this particular live broadcast, you did it for a reason. You saw Stop Renting Buy Houses. There's a reason you stopped, and there's a reason you've been listening to me for the last hour. Whatever that reason is, if you choose not to take advantage of this opportunity, whatever drove you to take and stop and listen to this, that reason you stopped is still with you. What is it? Tired of renting? Tired of having uncertainty at the end of your lease? Tired of just being broke paycheck to paycheck? Tired of falling asleep wondering what the future holds for you because you have no financial plan? You can't get out of this rat race of just living paycheck to paycheck? Whatever the reason is that you chose to stop and listen to my live stream here, that reason is still with you. At least take care of that particular part of that anxiety by doing the next step. Click on the icon up here on top for the Real Money Club. That's going to take you to another page, and you'll see a link there. You just hit that for school, SKOOL, and you're not just enrolling in the Real Money Club and getting access to the information to start acquiring property. What you've done is you've just eased your mind. You have soothed your soul because now you know you have a duplicatable plan that you can take and you can apply to build a better life for yourself. Folks, nobody would argue that real estate is not a foundation, if not cornerstone, of any strong financial plan for your future. What you may be asking yourself is, yeah, I know that's true, but I don't believe it will work for me. That's what you're really asking yourself. I don't think, or saying to yourself, I don't think it'll work for me. I'm saying it can work for you if you have the right information, you have the right plan to put it in action, and you have experienced people behind you to help you bring it all together. We do all of that here at the Real Money Club. So again, click on this link up here on top. That will take you to another page where you can hit the link in bio and where it says school and enroll for $25 a month. Have access to all this information, have access to people that can back it up, help you put it all together, help you synthesize the information. It's one thing to have all the ingredients and have the recipe. It's another thing to have someone standing right next to you there in the kitchen and making sure it's all put together properly. That's what we do. We're like chefs at real estate, and we're here to provide it to you as well. So that's going to do it for my live this afternoon. Again, please hit the like button if you like this broadcast. We'll be doing it again. And also, too, you can be part of our community, and we invite you to join us. Again, Real Money Club, click on this up on top, take you to a new page. You'll see the link in bio for school. Hit that, and you can enroll, become part of our community, and take one step closer to securing your financial future. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.